And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek, I almost said SDK, Corona Geek on air hangout, live here on Google Plus, and it's the spot where we talk all about mobile app development using the Corona SDK. I'm joined here in the studio by Dr. Brian Burton. Hey, Brian.
Hello.
Brian's author.
How are you?
Good, doing great, man. Brian's the author of several books on development using the Corona SDK. And I'm also joined by Christopher Ward. Say hello, Chris.
How you doing?
Chris is a developer and longtime developer and not a zombie entree.
I try not to be. It's just the habit.
And I am.
And you know, since starting this, I actually now have a zombie plan.
You do.
It's a very important thing it's a very important thing to have. It should be right. It should be there along with your important documents for your house. Something you can pass down to your kids.
That's right.
And I, of course, am Charles McKeever, and today we're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of great things happening in the Corona community. So, Toff, if you would, give us an overview of what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, we need to let everybody know that we've got a Dallas meetup on Corona coming up tonight. Now, the fun thing about that is it's actually a Google Plus Hangout. So if you don't happen to be in Dallas, you can technically still be there. It's the wonders of the internet. It's just that whole magical thing going on. Speaking of magical, there's another one coming up here that we're going to talk about that if you ever wanted to visit Hawaii, you'll get an opportunity there. We'll give you more information on that. Also talk about certifications. We always do our build notes, and next we've got widgets and pirates. I just like that one. We've got the creator of Corona Project Manager. We're going to talk a little bit about him, not today, but he's coming up. We've got Word Smack. If you haven't heard the news about EA, you definitely need to catch on board with that. Talk a little bit about the Apple Store for Christmas and iPhone 5, and we're going to end it up with the highlight of the evening, which is pulling data from a remote server and into your app. It's an awesome deal.
Absolutely. Now, we're also going to talk about T-shirt contest, right? That's another thing that we needed to add in there. So last time we met, we talked about the whole T-shirt thing, and basically Corona Labs is going to provide T-shirts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a Google form where you can go in and basically submit an entry to win a T-shirt. And so we'll have that next time for next show, and then we're going to hook up with Corona Labs, and they're going to send out those T-shirts to people. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So now, yeah, EA. Let's talk about EA for a minute, because there's a big announcement on the Corona Labs website that they got an app produced by Electronic Arts using the Corona SDK. I thought that was pretty cool. What do you guys think?
Oh, that's exciting.
I had a friend of mine who he was talking about, he knew a guy who was interviewing at EA, and I was like, really? I thought that was cool. It's like, did he happen to know that if he had been learning Corona SDK, he might have actually gotten a little extra foot in the door on that one? So
yeah.
I'm going to rub that in. So.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I was talking with the guys at Tap for Tap last week, and they were asking me, what big names have been using the Corona SDK for development, stuff like that. And of course, they have all those details on the coronalabs.com website, but I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. And I actually had EA in my head at the time, but I didn't want to say anything because I couldn't remember if that was correct or whatever. And then the next thing you know, like the day or so later, they came out with this announcement that Word Smack, had been developed by Electronic Arts using the Corona SDK. And I thought that was really cool. So we're going to talk about that a little later. We're going to talk about what is Word Smack, how does it work, and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a pretty big name behind using the platform to develop apps. So let's talk about Hangouts. We got this Hangout. This Hangout happens every Monday, 2 p.m. Central, live on air. But we've also got one coming up tonight it's really actually scheduled as a Dallas meetup. We've got the Dallas meetup group, and the holidays are upon us, and we're not really sure how many people can make it out, and it's always difficult, and there's traffic and all this kind of stuff. So we thought, hey, well, let's turn it into a hangout. We're kind of getting the hang of these hangouts, and let's do that. And so there's been a lot of interest. People all over the world have expressed interest, and we've actually had them ask, can we have it at a different time, because it's going to be tonight at 8 p.m. Central here on Google Plus. And absolutely, we'll have another one sometime soon. And I think we can have as many of them as we want. But tonight we're going to talk about storyboards, how it works, and it's really a casual. Come casual. Bring your own stories.
Not too casual.
Yeah, not too casual. Yeah, there is video involved. But bring your stories. Bring your questions. Bring your stories. Let's all just share. It's going to be throw it in the hat and let's talk about it, sort of thing. And I think, Brian, are you gonna be able to make it there?
I'm going to do my best to be there for this evening's festivities.
Excellent. Well, Toff and I will definitely be there. It's a Google. If you don't know, Google Hangouts have a 10-person limit as far as who can participate with video and audio and all that. Anybody will be able to watch, and we will have links to a tweet chat. So we'll have questions on Twitter, and we'll also be taking questions on Google Plus. So so if you can't jump on, it's going to be first come first serve. So if you can't jump on in the initial 10 slots, you can always watch and ask questions, and we'll go with that.
And what hashtag are we going to use for that? For the Twitter back channel.
Yeah, I'll post a link to it in the show notes, and also I'll post it out on the social media and stuff. But it's going to be the hashtag Corona SDK. Let's just do that. You want to do that?
Works for me.
Sounds good to me.
I think so. That way we cross promote and get some love. I mean, people are already there.
Feel the love.
Yeah. So that's tonight, and then coming up on December 1st is what? What do we got going on December 1st, guys?
Oh, well, as a backup, the whole idea of doing a local meeting on the internet just means you can come from anywhere, literally anywhere that has any kind of internet connection. You're good. So what if we kind of expanded that, because there are local meetups for Corona SDK literally all over the world. So if you happen to be in the Hawaii state of mind, we happen to have a guest speaker from Hawaii who's going to be on this something called Big Corona Meetup. And it is literally, we've got Boston, we've got where's it? Connecticut. I think we've got the designer from Connecticut. We've got Hawaii. Of course, he's going on vacation to the other Paradise Island, and then back to his original Paradise Island. But that's
So Richard Darling basically decided he wanted to do this 6-hour meetup on Google Plus, Google Hangout. So I thought that was at first he sent me that email and said, "Hey, let's do a 6-hour," and I was like,
6-hour anything. Hang on.
That sounds. I'm really lazy, man. That sounds like a lot of work. But the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. And so yeah, we've got Jen Looper from Boston. She's got a designer going to come in, going to talk about doing graphic design for your apps, and then Brian, you're going to do in the middle section there. You're going to do game development and go through an asteroid style game, and then Richard's going to talk about marketing and social media integration and all. I mean, a bunch of topics, man. Everybody's got 2 hours worth of time slot that they can fill, and we're even going to try to get Walter back in for a segment so that he can talk about the direction of Corona and state of Corona and all that kind of stuff, and it's going to be good. So that's going to be December 1st, and we'll post details for it. We're still hashing out all the little fine-grained stuff, but that's going to be coming up, and it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to try to record everything, and we're trying to have it where you can go watch it again if you're not able to make it. But because it's a 6-hour event, you can kind of come and go as you like. You'll have to provide your own dip, your own chips and dip, but you can come and go as you like. And so, but bigger than that, maybe even bigger than that, it is what? Anybody? Who wants to take this one?
Be him.
The Corona certified developer?
Oh, okay. Yes.
I was trying to give you a layup, man. I was trying to woo.
Bump set spike. Yeah, I understand.
Sorry. Well, we're just going to leave it at this. We're going to give a teaser. On Thursday, expect to see an announcement coming out of Corona about the Corona Certified Developer Program. They've been talking about it now for almost 6 months. That they're ready to make an announcement. Expect it to go out on Thursday's announcement.
That's very cool. Now, okay, so that's as much detail as we're going to talk about there.
That's as much detail as we're going to go today. We'll talk more about it in the weeks to come.
And 140 characters or less, what does it mean to be a certified Corona developer?
Ooh, start typing.
Prestige.
Prestige. Okay, so you
know what? Well, no, it shows that you really know Corona and you're able to make apps with it.
Okay. That
should be
140 characters.
That is, yeah. I think that's under 140 characters. Okay, good. So we'll look for that on Thursday. That'll be great. I think that's something we definitely want to talk about more on the next show for sure. Okay, let's see. Like I said, I talked with the guys over at Tap for Tap. They do basically a cross promotion, app discovery, and essentially they've got it to where you can integrate into your app so that you can almost like a web ring. Remember those? That's what I think of it as, like a web ring where you promote your app and somebody else promotes their app and you're all agreeing to promote each other's apps inside your app. But I talked with them and they said they're working on a Corona SDK integration piece, and so that way
nice.
It can make it easy to do. And they're also getting ready to open up their revenue sharing beta. So essentially, I don't know how it's going to work, but essentially it's something I can imagine. It's something to the nature of you've got your app promotion piece, and then maybe they're going to be able to deliver some ads, and then you'll do revenue share from there. So we'll have to get more details on it, but I know that right now everybody's kind of in that mode of how do I monetize my app? How do I promote? How do I get my app discovered? And that seems to smash both topics into one thing.
They've been able to take care of the whole issue of Apple not being happy if you're promoting other apps besides your own.
I think so. Because.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot on that.
That's what they're claiming.
No, it's an excellent question. No, I think that's a question we should ask every time that one of these opportunities comes up. How does that, what does Apple think about that?
Does that make Apple happy?
Exactly. Yeah. At the moment, I don't see that they have any problems. They certainly they haven't reported that they're experiencing any. And I think if you go back to that Apple language there, it really seems to be a placeholder for, there may be some really bad offenders, and then they're putting in Apple's putting in a placeholder, say, we reserve the right to do whatever we want to do.
Selective enforcement, is that?
Yeah, because the language on that is very specific in some areas and very general in others. So it's kind of interesting. But no, I don't know of any issues so far. So, but it's definitely something to watch.
We'll ask them about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's move on to the build notes. So what's going on with the build notes? There's a lot of stuff been happening. Anybody want to take that?
Actually, it was the new public release that caught my eye.
Yeah, very soon we're going to have another public release available. It's going to have all the new and nifty features that Corona's been working so hard on. You know, Walter's been talking a lot over the last several months about their new model that basically 2 months between public releases, and we're coming up on the next public release, and it's going to have all of these new widgets that they've been working hard on. It's going to have the whole iOS 6 for iPhone 5 integration, the larger screen, Game Center fixes. We're going to have a lot of really great things in the public release.
Yeah. So
and of course the public release is for the people that don't have subscriptions.
there you go. Thank you. Yeah, I was just about to say that's we need to define what that means to people. So yeah, I will put a link in the show notes. There was a blog post that Walter put out that kind of summarized that, and I think one of the things he said in that blog post was that 2-week schedule that you were talking about, they were going to push out the public release, and then they were also going to kind of change, not change, but they were going to modify the way that they were the way they were pushing out the changes. Hold on, I'm butchering it. He said it. He said it so well. He says, okay, this means two things. First, feature work will be going into a branch instead of a new daily build. Second, the latest daily build will contain only fixes for the most ultra-critical bugs. So I guess that's from now until the time they push that out. They're trying to just...
Yeah, we're just going to see bug fixes from now until it's pushed.
Right. So then features will go into a whole separate thing. So, so that's important to know, especially if you're subscribed and you're getting not the public release, but the developer, whatever you call it, the paid developer version. Okay.
Well, and if you went to the most recent release and looked at the updates, it's all it is basically a list of very minor bug fixes, but bug fixes nonetheless.
Yeah.
As I was looking through it, I didn't see anything that was earth-shatteringly critical bug fix, but they're just little things that are going to tweak it and make it work a lot smoother.
So essentially, they're not introducing anything new into that what will eventually become.
Right. We got our widgets. Be happy with your widgets. Play with your widgets, and then wait for the bug fixes.
Hey! This is a family show. So. Okay, that's awesome.
Speaking of widgets.
Yeah. Speaking of widgets, on the Corona blog, there is a blog post that we will post in the show notes that talks about all the new widgets that are available. And so, as far as blog highlights are concerned, that's one item. Which let me pop over there and look. It talks about.
On screen.
You got it? Oh, here it is. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I was looking at that other screen over there. So scroll down a little bit. So then they've got all the, it talks about all the widgets, how to get it in there, how to require the library, all that kind of stuff like that. So if you're interested in accessing, using any of the new widgets and working with that, then you're going to want to check out that blog post for sure, because it's got code examples. I think prior to this was just sort of an announcement that they were there, and then this one actually goes in depth and starts talking about how to implement them. So that's an important piece. And then secondly, on the blog was a Friday night forum. Piracy puts a dent in paid app sales. So I guess every Friday night they have a forum, an open forum. They post a blog post and then kind of ask for developer feedback, which is kind of cool. And so that topic last Friday was piracy, and of course, the biggest discussion usually is on the Android side of the house. Although, depending on how deep you want to go, you could probably have the same conversation for iOS, but it's more prevalent most of the time on Android, or at least more high profile on Android. So anyway, so the big I don't know, we want to call it. I thought the big takeaway from this blog post was the very first comment that somebody made. What was it? Butter, B-U-D-E-R there. And this person says that they actually go out and post a free ad-supported version of their game or their app to some of the well-known torrent sites. with the idea in mind that if somebody already sees that it's there, that they won't post the paid version. So they don't say that it's the free version or it's a it's a light version or anything like that. They just post a version of it. It happens to be ad supported, and then they're hoping that when somebody else comes along, they say, "Oh, well, it's already there. Well, I don't need to do that." So they won't post the paid version.
And I think that's a great idea.
It's very creative.
That's ingenious.
Yeah, it's very creative. Yeah, I
wish I'd thought of that.
yeah, exactly. So, Einer comes back and she asks, is it, are they seeing piracy mainly on Android? And he comes back and that person comes back and says, as far as I know, it's only in the Android world. So that's a really good discussion there. There's even some talk about whether or not your apps can be reverse engineered and blah blah blah, and it goes on and on. But it's a very good conversation. But I thought that was worth highlighting, as that they actually go to the effort to post their stuff to the torrent sites to circumvent somebody else already doing it. That's kind of cool.
Actually, it was the using piracy to promote your app. I mean, you think about it, it's a marketing.
Well, that's actually a secondary benefit, really. I mean, it's depending on how you want to look at it. You can go first or second, but yeah, you're also getting that distribution, right? So now somebody comes along and says, gets that pirated that app, and it says, "Oh, would you like to remove the ads?"
Exactly. So the whole idea of we're app discovery in all of these marketplaces. Oh no, I just put it on torrent and I get so many downloads. It's funny.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
Now the only thing there, and this goes back to David's point, David Rangel, when we had him on the show, was you need to build analytics into your app, because one of the other value pieces there is and the side conversation is that the people who get it from the torrent site probably weren't going to buy from you anyway. But they're still going to use the app, which is intelligence that could be fed back to you that you could use to improve the app for the people who are going to pay for it. So yeah, why not let those guys be your test monkeys? And
ad supported.
Yeah, it's ad supported. Yeah, to some degree, maybe you get some revenue off of it, and at least you're improving the app for the people who will pay for it. Just a thought. Okay, so let's move on to our developer spotlight. So we don't have him with us today, but we are going to have. And how do you say Jay's last name? Why?
Why?
Why? Okay.
Why?
Yeah, we're gonna have Jay. That's kind of funny.
Why?
Here, I just said that for the first time ever out loud. We're going to have him in the studio next week with us on the Hangout, and he is the creator of the Corona Project Manager. Now, Brian, this is the IDE that you use, right, to develop your apps?
Yes, this is the one I primarily use for my app development. And it should be noted, too, and we'll get him to talk about this, he's also written several children's novels. So,
cool.
Jay's one of those multi-talented type people up there in Alaska.
Yeah, up there with the polar bears, I guess. He also has, doesn't he have a website about learning how to develop Corona apps?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, he's got a little bit out there on and I think he's getting some classes started or something like that online.
Yeah. For
Corona app learning.
So hopefully we can get him to tell us some more about that. I know I've downloaded his app. I probably should put a link to it in the show notes, but I downloaded his app for Alaska real estate information. So apparently he pulls information from some resource and then puts it into the app, and then if you want, you can subscribe to his service or whatever and get everything through the app. So I thought that was kind of cool. So anyway, he'll be here with us next Monday, 2 p.m. Central, on the Hangout. And then this week we really don't have a community question. We're going to roll the community question in with the API spotlight at the end. We're going to talk at the end. We're going to talk about pulling data from remote locations and storing it in a database. That was one of our conversations that we were going to move to this week. So So let's talk about the app review. App review. We've got WordSmack, which we talked about earlier, which is an app created by EA, Electronic Arts, using the Corona SDK. So I've got it here on my iPad, and essentially it's a word guessing game, and you can it's very similar to in nature to kind of the words, not Words with Friends. Well, yeah, Words with Friends, in that it's got a social element to it. You can play with your Facebook friends, or you can just play with a random stranger. It's kind of almost like Hangman without the hangman.
Like Wheel of Fortune kind of stuff?
Yeah, kind of, I guess. To the degree of, you just got a word out there. You've got a certain number of characters, and you're trying to guess the word. So, WordSmack. Got some great graphics. If you go into the list of credits and look at the team there, a lot of people involved, which I thought was interesting. Let's see, where was it here? Yeah, developer credits. There's like a art director, and there was a game designer, lead programmer, server programmers. I mean, they put a significant effort behind it. It's not just a slap. They didn't just slap something up there, sort of thing. So it's a very nice app, and a lot of effort went into it, and very cool. One of the things I thought was interesting about it is you start out with 100 tokens. So Toff, this will be particularly of interest to you because you like or don't like apps that make you buy things in game.
Yes.
But you can you get 100 tokens, and then if you want to buy tokens, they have these token packs, and they're anywhere from $1.99 for 150 tokens up to $99.99 for 6,000 tokens. I thought this was the very interesting part of the app. It goes to $1.99, $9.99, $24.99, $49.99, and $99.99.
Well, $99.99 is like the highest dollar figure you can have on iTunes.
Well, I was thinking it's interesting though that they elected to go with those dollar figures just from the standpoint.
Pretty high.
Well, just from the standpoint of audience participation. I mean, you've got to think from a market research standpoint that somebody has demonstrated the past willingness to pay for things, right? I mean, the people who are kind of wordsmiths or whatever, must be, according to this, must be willing to pay $100 for tokens to be able to play this game. Yeah, there it is. So I was kind of interested. I mean, we've got the technical end of things. We got the notoriety end of things because it's EA and all that kind of stuff like that. But then we've also got just the kind of the market research end of things. I was like, So EA seems to feel that people will spend $100, or at least potentially it's worth giving them the option to spend $100. I was like,
wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, very interesting.
That's some devout casual playing.
Well, and it is. I mean, you've got some serious like Scrabble. Scrabble is you've got competitions. People get pretty.
Very serious about that.
Pretty serious about it, right? So here is an app that kind of leans into that concept that maybe people will pay big money. So it's a free app. So you're not.
Oh, look at this! Look! Hey, the second one there, where it says "pick helpers." I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
We see how it gets. Select up to 2 helpers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are helpers.
No, the tokens.
They're buying cheat codes. I love it.
Right.
I mean, think about it. It's like you can play the game all you want to, but if you want to cheat, well, here, just buy some more tokens. It's genius.
Well, it's not really cheating. It's
You just buy tokens.
You're just paying for additional help.
That's right.
Works in the real world.
I'm phoning a friend.
That'll
Yes.
be 10 tokens, please.
Yeah. And you can play multiple, just like kind of the Words with Friends, you can play multiple games. So you can have multiple games going at one time, which would, again, you would probably need a big bag of tokens because if you're, depending on how good or bad you are at wordsmithing, you you may or may not need a big bag of tokens. I need a big bag of tokens personally. So
I like that.
yeah, so click on. Oh, you can't. You don't have the app up. I'm sorry, that's screenshots. Anyway, so yeah, very well designed. It loads quickly, easy to understand. Nice app. So download it. 99 cents. You can start playing right away if you want. Sign in, hit your face. Annoy the crap out of your Facebook friends with it. one more game to play. But yeah,
We've got a free version, so if you want to go check it out without actually spending any tokens.
Right, yeah, you get 100 tokens when you start out, and I've already started some anonymous games and played, with it, and it's good. I like it. So, a lot of fun.
Sweet.
What else? All right, so let's talk about some industry news. What time is it? 2:30. Let's talk about some industry news. We got Apple stores. The Apple Store is going to be closed, not the Apple Store, but the Apple online store. The App Store. Apple Store, yeah. It's going to be closed December 21st to 28th. Sorry, I'm having a conversation with myself. So it means you can't submit apps for review or updates during that period. So my question is, do they do this every year? Does anybody know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this happens every year.
Okay. So it's not like they're doing something secret behind the scenes that...
No, every year around that time period, sometimes the dates vary a little bit, but basically this is their giving their app reviewers some time off so that they can go spend some time with their families.
Oh, cool.
So they close the store down or they don't close the store down. The store is up and running just fine during that time period so that all those new iPads that were unwrapped, you can purchase all the apps that you want. But they... basically no new apps are going to come on board during that time period.
So the people who run the servers to make sure that the money comes in, they don't get off. But the people who review the apps, they get off. Okay.
The networking people never get time off, but the reviewers, that hard work that they have to do, which that's got to be a rough job if you think about it.
That's right.
Looking at all these apps, making sure nobody's sneaking something in that they shouldn't have.
Right.
Having the Apple playbook and on what's acceptable and not acceptable and all the updates to that acceptability in memory. That's got to be a very demanding, stressful job at times.
I would imagine it would be stressful.
Air traffic controller.
Yeah, right. The job.
Not quite that level, but
people could die.
Nobody's life's on the line.
Yeah, if you're an Apple reviewer. Manager and you're yelling at people because people could die based on what you're...
You might be taking this job a little too seriously.
That's right. might want to take some switch to decaf. Okay, so they close every year. It's not a big thing. It's probably not any sort of behind the scenes magic. Okay. Did you guys hear about the iPhone 5 diagonal swipe glitch?
I just read about that yesterday. That's interesting. I hadn't. Of course, I don't have an iPhone 5, so I haven't experienced that myself.
I have the iPhone 4, so I've ignored everything that says 5.
Right. Well, okay. So I have the iPhone 5. So let me, for everybody who's wondering what we're talking about. Basically, if you take the device, if you've got go into your Mail app, you've got your iPhone 5, you go into the Mail app, and let's say you just do this number. At some point, the screen, the moving back and forth of the list will freeze, and then it'll start start moving again. And if you do your finger again, it'll move, and then it'll freeze. And sometimes even it hasn't done it for me, but sometimes some people are saying it even just locks up entirely, and you have to reboot the phone. But apparently it's some kind of buffer thing. I don't know, but. So the concern, I guess, is can it affect your app? And apparently it only happens. It's only happening on the iPhone 5 because I did the same thing on an iPhone 4 running iOS 6 and no issues. And in the video, we'll post a link to it. But in the video where somebody brought this up, they did the same thing. They did it on several different devices, and it only happened on the iPhone 5. So it's kind of obscure. It's something most people wouldn't notice. But if you have an app that is all of a sudden acting erratically on the iPhone 5, it may not be the Corona SDK that's giving you the fits. It may be, the iPhone 5 that's giving you the fits.
Now, it may be somebody's 3-year-old child who's going like this to your iPhone going, what? Hey, wait, she broke it. What? How did you? I'm going to call Apple about this. Yeah, it's broken. It's totally.
Yeah, and I don't know if it, if you do, it doesn't seem to, it seems to freeze. But if you're doing just a sort of a swipe, does it? I don't know. So
she thought she was playing Fruit Ninja instead, but it was my mail. So
you're right. Yeah. So I drug it behind my car and it stopped working. What's wrong? I don't know. Anyway, an interesting glitch. So if you're having problems with that, send us a message and let us know. I'd be interested to hear anybody who's being affected by that. So, okay, iPhone 5, keeping on that vein, is coming to China. Which, wouldn't you think it's already in China?
It is built there, right?
I've talked to some people that are in China, and they have a huge problem in China being able to get products that are being made in China.
It just seems wrong.
Oftentimes it gets sent over here to the U.S., and then they have to purchase it from a U.S. warehouse and have it shipped back to China. So it's
insane.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's just everything that gets made automatically gets put in a container and shipped to the East. So
that's incredible. That's incredible. Well,
yeah. So the fact that they are now actually getting the devices is pretty exciting. And time for localization. If you haven't put a Chinese translation of your app out, need to be doing that.
Oh, that's a good idea. Let's link to Dean Murphy's post on localization. I think he even did a video on that. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Toff, will you put that in the notes?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Okay, cool. So so China's getting it. Apparently, it's a big to-do. It's a big to-do because I think it was like $5 billion worth of Apple's revenue last time that they did it. Some kind of crazy number like that. We'll post a link to the article. But it's I can imagine the paperwork that's involved. Just the political wrangling, the paperwork, everything just to walk the device across the street, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's definitely opening up a whole new market. So let's keep an eye on that. All right, let's talk about let's go to API Spotlight and talk about what we said we would talk about last time, which was really the original topic was, should you store your data in a file? Should you store it someplace using JSON, or should you store it with a database? So now Brian, you've gone through recently and put together an entire working example of something that pulls from. Tell us about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, back to the original question: should you be storing something in a database or a flat file, or just doing simple file I/O on the local device, or pulling from a remote server? That's going to be based completely upon the complexity of the amount of data that you need to store. If you're just needing to store basic information, they're on level 2, they've got 480 points and 3 lives left, put that in a flat file, save it as JSON or whatever format you want to save it as. That you're not saving that much data. To actually go into a database is probably a little overkill. When we start getting into a database, Dean's app where he was talking about needing or creating all these jokes, that was a perfect example of a place where I would use a database. Anytime you've got a lot of information that you need to be able to store easily, efficiently, that's a perfect example of storing as a database. Now we get into a third tier of complexity when I want to be able to pull information from a remote server. Going back to Dean's project, if he was wanting to be able to send new jokes to the app, it could be done by just simply placing it in a remote server database that your app checks to see, hey, are there any new jokes? Or the person's made a purchase of your mama jokes or something like that, and we need to download that to the app. So we're going to press the information and be able to download that information to the local device. What we really want to do is, for a situation like that, is have that database set up on that remote server. In my example, that the tutorial will be ready very soon on YouTube and on my website. What I did is I created a MySQL database, and I just made it real simple. I picked some of my favorite movies, created a simple table, one table of my favorite movies, got the title of the film and the year the film was made, and that's it. So MySQL file that just simply has 10 of my favorite movies on it, or 5 or something like that. And then I created a PHP file. The PHP file serves as our middleware, which means I can use this for any kind of app, whether it's a website, whether it's Corona, whatever you're wanting to use, can pull that information in and be able to use it to the client end. Of course, those of you that have been doing any kind of software development for any length of time know I'm basically talking about a standard 3-tier system. We've got our server, we've got our middleware, and then we're going to have our client. So my server is MySQL, my middleware is a PHP file that's going to pull from the server database, the MySQL database, transfer that information into a JSON format, which in PHP, that's a piece of cake. If you've created an array, loaded the information in there, you say JSON encode and echo it to your device, and you're set to go. And then on the client end, we need to be able to get that into the client. So when you're dealing with networking, you got to take into account that the network compared to your phone, no matter, even if you're dealing still with an iPhone 3, the network is incredibly slow compared to your phone or device that you're working with. So what I did is, I did this experiment with my students. We created this 3-tier structure. I created the MySQL database, created the PHP file, and then we made a client in class one day to see if we could get it to work. And yes, we did. We were actually able to pull the information from that remote server, be able to print it to our terminal, and display it. Now, the first class I tried to show this in, I didn't take into account how slow the network was. And so it was showing the data that I was receiving the data, but it wasn't processing the data. I was doing the processing external to the network listener, which was my mistake. Once we weren't able to solve it that class period, so I gave it as an assignment. What are we doing wrong? One of my students, right after class, sent me an email and said, "Hey, the network's slower than the device. We need to do the processing as part of the network listener function." Once we put everything into the network function, everything worked perfectly. So we pulled the information into the JSON, and of course Corona has built-in JSON encoding and decoding. We decoded it, and it's there as a table then. We can then process that table in any format we want. What we did in the classes, I just simply created a simple for next to iterate through the JSON file and save it to a SQLite database on the local device. Now, as I said, I'm going to put the whole tutorial up, all the code up. It's all going to be available. If this 3,000-foot view just confused you, that's okay. We're going to give a much more detailed explanation to this, but we really don't have time to do that in the Corona.
Okay, so what?
Geek. So I'm going to create a whole YouTube video on this.
Okay, so basically, excellent. That's going to be great, and we'll link to that when that's available. Let me know. So what I heard was that basically it depends on the amount of data that you need to store. So something simple like a game score, a game ID, even 10 fields worth of information probably can do that in a text file. And you can do that in a text file, not necessarily with JSON, right? You can just do that just with a file in the local file
I think it would be, as far as saving and loading the information back in, I think it would be a little bit easier to do it as a JSON file because of its automatic formatting that it gives you.
But even so is that true though, that even a JSON file though is it's still a local file on,
it's
on
a
the
local
device.
It's still a local file. It's just simply the way you're arranging the data as you save it.
Okay.
So you're putting it all into a table or an array and saving that array or table to a flat file for later usage.
Okay. So when you open up the local file and pull the data out, it's in a JSON format, and you work with it in JSON, stuff it into a table, and you use it from there.
Yes.
Okay. So there's that. Then there's the database, the full-on database experience. Okay. Does that add any? What kind of weight does that add to the app size-wise? Is there
on a Apple app for iOS, it doesn't add any additional size. For a Android, I want to say about 300K.
Okay.
Because it's got to add the whole SQLite framework to it.
Okay, so that's bringing that into the
But still,
app.
That's pretty lightweight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty lightweight.
Okay, yeah.
And that's not counting the size of the database itself.
Yeah.
That's just to add the SQLite.
Yeah, mileage may vary there, right? So.
Right.
Okay, so then apart from that, so that's all still very local on the device. I mean, we don't need a network connection or anything for that. But as soon as we go outside of the device to make a connection to a remote server someplace, whether it's ours or somebody else's, we have to have a network connection. And
yes.
We're affected.
So you got to test for that.
Yeah, we got to test for that. We're also affected by the speed of that connection. So we got to test for that.
Right.
Wait for things to happen before we process any data that comes back. And if we do want to set up our own back-end system, kind of like they did with WordSmack, you got to have MySQL, PHP, the access to the server, all that kind of stuff as well. Okay.
Yes. And of course, the middleware depends upon whatever flavor you're most comfortable with. I've been using PHP for over 10 years. I like PHP, so I went with PHP. But you can do Ruby on Rails or whatever you like.
Yeah. Years ago, 2001-ish, somewhere in there, 2001, 2003 or something like that, I developed an app for a company in Fort Worth, and of course we were using Pocket PC. We were using the Microsoft.NET Compact framework at the time, and we actually pulled information from a SQL server, but it was all done. This is prior to wireless smartphone, any kind of real data connectivity, and so you had to sync it up in the office and then carry the device out into the field with you. So it was kind of you pulled from a remote server, but only when you had an internet connection, and then went out and used it in the field. So things have advanced quite a bit, but you still have to take
amazingly.
Yeah, exactly. But you still have to take in connectivity and speed and ability to connect, and what do you do with that data once you get it, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that your tutorial, because that's a whole end-to-end, pulling it, bringing it, storing it.
Yeah, I've created an entire end-to-end, and I'm storing to a SQLite database on the phone, and then I read from that database to show what's happened.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm going to hopefully work on that yet this afternoon and try and get that edited and ready to go. If not, it'll be tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay.
The advantage of this, from my perspective, is I don't have to resubmit a new app if I have new data.
And Dean,
right.
Dean
That's the big one.
Dean Murphy and I have been having that conversation of he wants to build into his apps going forward. He wants to build in some sort of remote updating, remote control sort of thing, to where he can update his jokes. remotely, and
Yes.
somebody can unlock it and then.
And this would give you that kind of capability.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So, and it's actually very simple. The actual app, and this includes pulling the information in, checking it to make sure don't have a network error, processing the array, opening up a SQLite database, creating it if it doesn't already exist, saving that data to the array or to the database, and then loading it back to the screen. We're talking less than 50 lines of code.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's one of the reasons.
It really is that simple.
And that's one of the reasons why I've always avoided JSON. Not because, I didn't understand what it was, but because there was so much manual fiddling with things. But Corona seems to remove that piece of it.
Corona and PHP just makes it a piece of cake. I mean,
yeah.
As long as you've got an idea of your formatting, what the JSON formatting is doing, then it's really not a big deal at all.
Yeah, you can never seem to escape that part. But yeah, it seems like the Corona just makes it really easy to work with. So that's great. Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to the tutorial. We'll tweet that out when it's available. And are you going to include that is that going to be a piece in your next book too?
It wouldn't surprise me if it gets a chapter either in this book or I'm considering working on a more advanced book that's more advanced features, and I may include it in that.
Very cool.
So,
awesome.
But there'll probably be a chapter built around it.
Yeah, it's what you've got all those things that we just talked about. I mean that's multiple things.
It's at least 30 pages to fully describe what's happening here. So.
Right, which is perfect for a video. All right. Well, anything else we want to talk about that at all? Anything else we want to talk about? Any other tidbits? Anything?
I'm good.
Toff, you still don't have your Corona hat, do you?
I do not have a Corona hat.
We'll have to work on that. We'll work on that along with getting the T-shirts out to people.
Yeah, especially with the T-shirt contest. We need to have a hat contest too.
Yeah. Well. See, I think we have to work. We'll have to work with Corona Labs on that, and maybe we could do maybe we could initiate a design contest where people could submit their Corona designs and then pass that to them, or get everybody involved some way. It's got to be a community effort.
That's right.
Works for me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it, guys. That's all we have for this week. That's quite a bit, I think. So thanks for joining us here. Like we said, we're here every Monday, 2 p.m. Central, here on Google+. You can also find us, if you haven't watched the previous Hangouts that we've had, you can find those at youtube.com/coronageek. And you can also find us on your particular social media flavor that you like. If you want on Twitter, twitter.com/coronageek, facebook.com/coronageek, Google+, blah, 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 the big old long nasty URL, which if you're here, you're here. But you can, you just Google Corona Geek, you'll find us. What else? Where else are we? Anywhere?
If you can't find us, you're having some severe issues.
You're not.
Wi-Fi's not connected.
You're not looking hard enough. All right. So thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to check the show notes for everything that we talked about. And we'll see you next week.
Take it easy.
All right.